Hey everybody, thanks for watching my little talk on what I've been working on recently. While I've been attending college, I decided I wanted to do something purely for ourselves around home that had nothing really to do with making money from worms as such. So I decided to do a little aquaponics garden. This is the picture I threw up on Facebook this morning while I've been working on the videos. When most people see this picture, they immediately think of a hot tub, but that's actually the fish tank, if you like, of the aquaponics, or I'm terming it a ponic system. I don't want to get into arguments with the aquaponics purists who might say that I'm not doing a proper aquaponics system. I'm not actually raising fish to eat in this pond. They're just ornamental fish. And I'm not raising a lot of food, vegetables in their own rights as such in the aquaponics system. I'm only raising some kitchen herbs and leafy greens. But anyway, that's a picture quite recently of the system as it stands today. The changes I'm going to make for that in future are I'm going to put in the black box that you can see underneath the bathtub, I'm going to put a wicking bed of mint in there and see how that goes. Quackye's done one with a styrofoam broccoli box. Looks quite good, and I had been interested in wicking beds for a while after talking to Rob Bob from Rob Bob's channel. But anyway, so originally this space was just a dirt pad out the side of the house. Once we're going to move into this house, we had some concreting done out the front, and we got the big shed, and we got the concreters to concrete this little area in for a barbecue area. Never sort of planning so much on doing this aquaponics system, it just came to be. So I built this pergola, as you see there, and on the top of it I just put the leftover white 50% waterproof shade cloth that I had left over from the hoop house. You can see my site manager Sam there inspecting the job I've done on cutting down the frame that's on the outside of those 1,000 litre or 250 gallon, I suppose, little tanks, IBCs. You can see I've filled the ends of the little pipes up with silicone there. Apparently that's one trick. Water gets down in those and rots them out from below. And so that's the tank being pushed into position for a little bit of a fitting sort of thing to plan out what I was going to do. Oh, that's a picture of the silicone that you can see in the end of the pipe there. So this one here, that's showing the cladding as I put it on the tank. You can see this wood here. It's an untreated hardwood that I got permission to recover from a customer's property. I got about 50 or 60 4-metre long lengths of that. So 4 metres, about 12 feet long. Some of them were longer, like 16 feet. And it's pretty well 4x1 before it's hit with a plane or anything. So sometimes it comes down. It's random widths too. So sometimes there's a little bit of variance in the width of it because it hasn't been put through a thicknesser. So anyway, so there again you can see the framing that I put around the tank to attach the cladding and the capping to. You can see here what I'm showing is the middle board has been hit with a planer and then an electric planer and electric sander, and mited on the edges. That's how I've done each piece for the cladding. And the piece of wood either side is the natural wood as it is sitting in my yard. You can see it's got a very weathered sort of look to one side of it that's been up towards the weather. And you can see through the timber you've got all the saw cuts that I think give wood like this a bit of character. And so I didn't want to get rid of all of that character, so I just planed and sanded it back until it was nice to work with, nice to look at. And so there you can see the finished clad box. and then I proceeded to oil it. And so the sides of this probably got about 6 coats, and I just used plain raw linseed oil, and it came up very nice. And there's a picture I showed you all in Facebook of the fully clad box, all nicely oiled. You couldn't blame anyone for thinking that's a hot tub, or we call them a spa in Australia. And so that's the bathtub upside down with the framing on it that I've created. And that was the easiest way for me to do it, was to flip the bathtub up on its back like that and then build the framing around it. And then we flipped the framing into place, added some legs and some bracing. Here I show I'm making the water feature that I created. I wanted some sort of water feature. I've always been jealous of people with water features, and when you see them on TV, and we've never had a place to actually do one. So it was really good to be able to create a water feature within the Aquaponics or Ponics system. And if you're wondering, the water that runs down the water feature is pond water and returns to the pond. So it basically just aerates the pond water. And there you can see the water feature when I first installed it. You can see up the top a really old dinged around tap. That's the sort of look I was looking for. You can't really see it well, but up here in the top the wood is very, very weathered, and I've used very weathered wood for as much of this as I could. Unfortunately, the right hand pane just on the right hand side of that top watering can is really lovely and weathered, but now it's all covered up with plants, so you can't really see it. And so there's the 3 units put in together, and you'll notice along the back and sides of the tub are these little green boxes. What I did is I wanted to make provision for putting mint into the aquaponic system, but I'd been told by everyone and noting its growth habit, if you put mint into the main aquaponic system, it'll just take over the whole tub. So what I did is the trays that you see round the back, there's actually 4 of them now, have lemon balm, which I think is called lemon verbena officially, and different types of mint, but they're still fed water from the pond system and have a hole in the front of them to get rid of excess water out of the bottom of them. They're the self-watering type that are similar to what a wicking bed works like, in that they've got a little plastic tray in them, in the bottom of them, where water's supposed to sit and wick up into the planter, so that any water that makes its way into that area then drips back out into the bathtub and gets recycled through the system. So here I'm going to try and explain what a bell siphon is and how it works within an aquaponic system. Basically what happens in an aquaponic system is a pump is on 24 hours a day pumping water into the grow bed. And what happens is, as water fills up to a certain point in the grow bed, it then gets emptied out automatically through this cool thing called a bell siphon. I don't take any credit for this. This is something that's been around for a long time. Go and see Rob Bob's YouTube channel, which is one of my favourite channels if you want to get to it through my channel. But he's really into all this aquaponic stuff, and he helped me out a lot when I was designing this system and working out how it all worked. But anyway, if you have a look at the thing I've got there, I'll see if the next frame might give us a bit better. See, so you've got what's called the standpipe in the middle, and the bottom of the standpipe is basically connected into the plug hole of the bath. So any water going into the top of the standpipe goes out through the plug hole, and that's the only way water can get out of the bath, is through the plug hole, through this standpipe. Around the outside of the standpipe is the actual bell itself, and it's just a piece of pipe with a glued on cap on the top, and at the bottom of the bell there's notches cut out, and then round the outside of the whole thing is what's called a media shroud or shroud, and its job is to basically keep all the clay balls from getting into the bell and allowing you access into the area to maintain it or clean it out if roots get in there or whatever else. So anyway, what happens? Well, going back to the other picture, and again, Rob's got a really neat video on this, so I don't want to take up a lot of time, but basically water fills up inside the grow bed, and that fills up the water. The same water level that's in the bathtub is inside the bell siphon. And how that works is as the water comes up inside the bell, it's pushing air out through the standpipe. And so it fills up up to the top of the standpipe, and then water starts to pour into the standpipe. And because of the way they always have this larger mouth on top of the standpipe, I think that's what helps to do it. It actually sucks the rest of the air out of the bell as it's pouring water into it, and then it creates a siphon, much like you'd siphon petrol out of a car through a hose. After you get that siphon, after you get all the air out of that hose, if your petrol can's lower than your fuel tank in the car, it'll keep siphoning out. So the same thing will happen here. It'll keep siphoning. So it'll suck all the water out of this bathtub within about 3 minutes, drawing down huge amounts of oxygen into that bedding. And I believe that's what, apart from anything else, that's what makes aquaponics so successful, is that huge amount of oxygen entering the root zone time after time after time. And so depending on how quickly we set the input into the system, this might dump the whole lot of water in there 3, 4, 5 times an hour, depending on the size of your pump. But anyway, so what happens at the end of the cycle, as the water reaches, if you look at the bottom of the bell there, those notches that we cut in there, I've cut those notches 15 mil, so just over half an inch off the base. So as the water gets down to that level, air starts getting sucked in through those notches and breaks the siphon, and then the whole thing starts again. So the siphon gets broken. That's in the video that follows this one. You can hear some gurgling, and that's what's happening, is that the air gurgles in past the water, fills up the bell with air and breaks the siphon, and then the bathtub starts to fill again. And you can see here the part on the bottom is the plug hole of the bathtub with a fitting siliconed inside of it that'll receive the standpipe, and the bigger fitting you can see there is the bottom of the shroud. So the bottom of the shroud gets put in right at the bottom, where no media can get inside the standpipe. And so there you can see the whole thing one on top of the other. You've got the base of the media shroud underneath the plug hole fitting of the bathtub. Inside the plug hole fitting is your standpipe. Then next to that whole thing is just a little cap that goes on top of the media shroud to stop leaves and such getting in there. This is all from Rob Bob, by the way. I didn't invent any of this. It's just how Rob advises to do it. And you can see the media shroud there. I've cut many slits in it. I've also, when I took it back off, and I put a heap more holes in it in between the rows of slits. So, on to the journey. I should have turned that photo around. So my friend has a house up in the Springbrook rainforest. He's right next to the national parks up there, and it's just such a beautiful area. And I often joke with him that most people have to work on their garden to make it nice, and he has to work in his garden and kill the things that he doesn't want to grow, because everything just grows like a weed up there. And several times when I'd been up there, I've been eyeing off this lovely log that he had up there with some plants growing out. I thought, wouldn't that be a lovely addition? Something like that around, like up in the corner of the water feature or something like that. And I was kicking around the idea with him, and lo and behold, he took me for a walk and told me that all of these logs were going to be destroyed when he got some work done. Just look at that beautiful log. It's got voids inside of it, natural voids already, which I increased with a spade bit and put drainage holes in. And I actually had to cut it off sort of towards the right of the picture so it'd fit in front of the water feature, and then the bit that I cut off I stuck vertically up into the corner. And you can see it there. You'll have to excuse the cords. I've got to reroute all my cords once I get the log back out to work on it. But anyway, so I had to install some drip emitters, drip watering system into the log and across the surface of the log to keep all this lovely moss and whatever it is growing on this log. It started to dry out immediately down here on the flatlands where it wasn't up in national up near the national park at Springbrook, where it's a high mountain and it's virtually moist all the time. And you can see there the plants that I've put in it, just some bromeliads and agave, a little succulent that I got from my friend's house as well, and a little variegated plant. I don't know the names of those ones. But anyway, so there's the whole system. Before I'd put fish or any pond plants in, before I'd put any plants in the actual aquaponics bed itself. And I left it that way to cycle for about a week first, just to start cleaning up the water a little bit. You can see I've got a light there. We had a major big box hardware store go out of business here, and they had specials between 50 and 90% off, so I got that pond light really cheap, and it is a lovely addition. I didn't think I'd want something like that, a bit gaudy or whatever, but at night it's beautiful. It shines off the back of the water feature and puts ripples of orange light across the roof, the shade cloth roof there. You also have to excuse the drain on the left. I've yet to go and get the nice river gravel to fill that in, and then we're going to put some potted plants along that edge. So this is the day we actually added the fish. I got some fish from my mother's farm. They're just paradise fish. I think they're a native Australian fish, but they don't require any heating in our mild winter, and they grow quite large. We also put some bristlenose catfish in there. They were about sort of 5 or 6 inches long when we got those, but you never see those because they're quite private fish. You can see at the back of the tub between the first two green troughs, you can see the black hose come out where the water comes out into the grow bed. So this is after we put pond plants in. I got a beautiful purple flowering water lily from my mother. We also got some miniature papyrus and water irises in the left hand side, and that pot you can see, that's just Lysomachia nummularia, which is commonly known as creeping Jenny. It's a marginal plant as such. It's not supposed to be fully submerged, but it will handle being fully submerged quite well, and as there's about a sort of 4-inch drop in water 3 or 4 times an hour, it's again getting its root zone inundated with oxygen, so it's not truly being submerged all the time. That's a picture of the quite a recent picture actually of the whole setup. There is a video or 2 videos following this video. One is the actual I show the bell siphon cycling, and another one is a video I just took that points out what all the plants are that we planted in there, so I won't go through that all again. But again, basically no true food plants or vegetables, just some leafy greens, some kitchen herbs and some mint, and I'll just see how it goes. It could quite possibly be that it doesn't work out really well and I haven't got enough nutrient cycling from the fish to actually support so much life, but I'll give it a good red hot go and see how it goes. But anyway, so that's the end of this video, showing you what I did with all that thing. And again, there's the 2 videos following. You might look at those if you're interested. Remember to subscribe to my YouTube channel and also follow me on Gumroad if you're interested in plans and things like that to do with raising worms. Thanks very much, guys.